The Flow Friday Night Sports Show continues into the second hour now. Jason Regan with you tonight alongside Ellis Gellius. We've let the Flow Man go. We'll get him back a little bit later on for our listeners in Victoria and New South Wales to see if we can have a look at what's going on there. But in the world of sport right now, Ellis, there is plenty going on around the place.
It's crazy. We're in these ridiculous, unforeseen times, but at least we've got sport providing us with constant enjoyment and entertainment.
The AFL is back as of, this time next week we'll have already had a game in the books. And that's AFL men's. I know the AFL women's are still going on for those woke ones out there who want to have a crack. But I wanted to talk about this. Majak Daw, it's great to see him back on an AFL list. I think Melbourne have picked him up as on a rookie list. Now, I know he was planning on playing some suburban footy in Melbourne, so I'm sure his suburban club is disappointed that he's back on a list, but I think it's fantastic for Majak. He hasn't had a great couple of years. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this is a real fairy tale for me because obviously this is a player with very known struggles, but he looks to be on the up. He's obviously got a young family by his side, and to be given another chance in the AFL when, as a young man, he really burst on the scene with North back in the day. I know people will say a lot about the fact that maybe he was probably not all that he was hyped up to be at times, but obviously being on the books of an AFL club at a young age, you don't get there being average, and it's great that Melbourne have obviously given him a lifeline, and hopefully we see more of him this season.
Let's hope we see the best of him too. Let's talk now about the AFL deciding to revert back to a day grand final. Are you surprised, shocked, dismayed or happy?
Not surprised at all. I think the night spectacle we saw in 2020 was sort of the perfect end to what was a real makeshift season, as we know, and they really went for that showman type finale. I'm not surprised at all to see them revert back to the traditional showpiece that we're obviously accustomed to, and I would hesitate to think that many people would have really gotten behind the cause of changing it long term. I think everyone enjoyed the fact that it was something to just get behind as a one-off novelty, but everyone's grown up with the traditional 2:30 time slot on a Saturday, and that's all we know, Jason, so I'm not surprised.
All right, well, they're hoping to have 100,000 fans back in the G by grand final day too, so fingers crossed that all goes well in the land of COVID and that we can actually make that a reality. In tennis news, Roger Federer is back. He's had his first win in the Qatar Open. Beat Dan Evans in 3 sets, so that's his first win in 405 days after being injured in the Australian Open, I believe, or he took some time off after that. So great to see the Fed Express back. He's nearing 40 now, but gee whiz, we've got the big three back in action all at once, and we might be the last time where we get to see them.
Yes, we are blessed, and I did have this discussion with the Flow Man about 7 days ago as to will this be the last ATP calendar season that we see the Federer in action. I think he'll go on, and until he physically can't, live up to the demands that people expect of the Fed, I think we'll be seeing more and more of him.
Let's talk the Olympic Games. Now, I spoke with Clayton during the Sports Fix about 2032, what it will look like, how the bid in, we should mention this is a regional bid. Everyone's saying Brisbane, but it's actually southeast Queensland's bid. So Gold Coast will be involved, the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane all getting together to bid for that. First, though, we've got a couple of Olympic Games to get through before we get to them. Tokyo going ahead this year, but it looks as though there will be no international or overseas spectators due to the concerns about COVID-19. That is very sad.
It is, and you'd be absolutely spewing as a Japanese national because, I mean, we know these games do not come cheap. Obviously, they ride high off of the tourism that comes into the country. Having pictures being back around the world of empty stadiums is not going to be something many people aspire to see at all. So it is very sad, but at least we're going to have something going ahead, Jace.
That's true. Scott Morrison now is on the bandwagon as well. The PM has said the IOC can be assured that it has a certain partner in uncertain times as far as the bid for 2032 goes. It is Australia's to lose. Are you excited about the fact that we might have an Olympic Games on our shores in a decade's time?
Absolutely, and I've got to say I think it's a political no-brainer from ScoMo because when the rest of the world is in this dark, uncertain place right now, Australia is moving ahead in leaps and bounds. And yeah, I am excited, Jason, particularly given that back in 2000 when I was a very young little critter, I probably didn't have the maturity to enjoy the spectacle that was here, the great Sydney Games. And obviously we know that as an extension to the Games being held in Australia, there's possibilities for sports like football to actually be played in other cities, as it was back in 2000. Obviously Adelaide hosted the football component of the Olympics, and coming off the back of a Women's World Cup being held in Australia as well, something like that here in Adelaide would be absolutely phenomenal for our South Australian listeners. So yeah, there's plenty to be excited about, of course.
Absolutely, and you mentioned football, the World Game. What about the AFL? Because the plan is to host these Olympic Games right at the end of July. So I think the AFL will be shutting down for a couple of weeks. Not an ideal time for them, but you know what? It's the Olympic Games. Who cares?
Yes, it's that old chestnut of the AFL having its sort of once-in-a-decade inconvenience. But look, sometimes there's a bigger event that comes to town, and unfortunately Gillen and the boys will have to make way for that.
They will. Let's have a look at what's coming up in this hour here on The Flow Friday Night Sports Show. A little bit later on, Big Brucey talking Speedway with him. Looking forward to that. Also coming up in this hour for our South Australian listeners, a legend of the Sturt Football Club, the current skipper, and a person you went to school with.
Yes, went to high school with James Battersby, had plenty of great times back in the day, and obviously so exciting to see him get drafted to the Crows as well. He's gone on to have such a great career at a South Australian level, so very interested to hear what he has to say.
In Victoria and New South Wales, we're going to get the Flowman back on to talk a little bit about the COVID rules that are trumping so many Vic footy clubs at the moment. They're a bit concerned about those, and also some of the draws for competitions in the Riverina in New South Wales. The Flowman's got all of those covered, so we'll get him back on the line for that. And, of course, next, Dan the Man. He will be up to talk basketball, NBA All-Star Game, NBL Cup going on at the moment here in Australia. Lots to talk about in basketball as well, Ellis.
The great Dan, he's forever informing us on everything surrounding the baskets. So, yeah, great to get the flying mullet on.
We will lay up with Dan Crouch after this here on the Flow Friday Night Sports Show.